Welcome once again to the Daily Fantasy Whiff. I'm Big Italy 42 and he is BChad50 on Twitter. His name's Josh Shepardson. We're talking about fades and avoids for tonight, and we're going to have to go a little bit more in depth here. Only 6 games, and it's going to be easy to tell you what to fade, easy to tell you what to avoid, but we're just going to give you the breakdown of each game, tell you who we're fading, who we're avoiding, maybe some guys that are overpriced, underpriced, try to help you find a little bit of an edge on this this little 6-game slate that isn't particularly appealing for tonight.
Yeah, we're going to dig in a little deeper than we normally would with the small slate. We could very quickly tell you stack these teams, don't stack those teams, and be done in just a couple minutes. But we want to give you the kind of content that you're looking for at Daily Fantasy Cafe. So we'll give you some bargain picks and a little bit of everything.
All right, absolutely. And with that being said, we're going to start off with St. Louis at Kansas City and monitor the weather concerns. There are a little bit of concerns with rain in this one, so keep your eyes out open for that. Check out Twitter, see what's going on there. Make sure you it looks like 60% chance of showers and storms, so definitely look into that and make sure. But either way, you've got Edinson Volquez as a very small favorite, minus 115, just a 7.5 run total. We know Kansas City, obviously more of a pitcher's park than anything. Not a ton of faith in either of these pitchers. We were talking on the FanDuel podcast earlier that if we're going to choose one, I think we're both on Volquez. Lackey, not a guy I like to target. I don't like to target anyone against the Royals ever. It's just one of my DFS rules, and I know I'm not the only one in that thinking. So for me, Lackey's out, and I think it could be an interesting way to stack because this is a really potent offense in Kansas City that hits righties well. I mean, they hit lefties well also. You look at them, they're directly behind the Dodgers in Team WOBA against righties, 331, 150 team ISO, striking out just 15.1% of the time. Lackey doesn't have huge upside anyway, but it's certainly capped against this tough Royals lineup.
Yeah, that 15.1% strikeout rate's the big number for me. If you're looking at a pitcher and they're facing an above-average offense, you better at least have some strikeout upside. You get none of that facing the Royals. Lackey just makes for, I mean, at best you're looking at maybe a quality start and just a couple of punch-outs, and that's just not worth the risk. I do like Volquez better. I think if you look at the positions by position, I mean, first base is going to offer some good options tonight. You've got Eric Hosmer, Matt Adams, both left-handed, both going to get the platoon advantage against the opposing pitcher. Kendrys Morales, a switch hitter, who's going to also get to hit left-handed. So first base is really the position that I like in this game from these teams. Got 3 options there across both sites. It's hard to disagree with using any of those options. Colton Wong looks good at second base. I think even though we like Volquez, if Mike Matheny were to happen to get creative, which is not really Mike Matheny's thing, there could be some stack potential here because you do have the Cardinals offense opening with a couple left-handed batters in Wong and Matt Carpenter. If Hayward were to get moved up in the lineup, you could have another lefty up near the top of the lineup. That would certainly make for an interesting stack possibility. But I'm guessing to go along with Matt Adams at first base, who we talked about. So if you've got, say, Adams hitting cleanup, maybe they do something like move Hayward up to the 5 spot, and Matt Holliday's not moving out of the 3-hole. You got an interesting 1 through 5 stack that you can run out on DraftKings. It's going to get you 4 lefties against Edinson Volquez, but again, Mike Matheny doesn't seem to be the most creative of managers. He kind of just fills out the lineup card, closes his eyes, and just kind of goes to sleep, I think, in the dugout sometimes. But beyond that, the outfield looks pretty interesting tonight. We got Alex Gordon, a lefty, against Lackey. Lorenzo Cain hits lefties and righties. We both like Lorenzo Cain a lot. So you do and Mike Moustakas, love him hitting hitting second at third base for the Royals. So you're right, there's some stack potential there with the Royals as well, especially depending on how that lineup shakes out. You could get something like Alcides Escobar at shortstop, Moustakas second, guessing Hosmer third or fourth with Cain mixed in there, and you got a nice little 1 through 4 going there. And not my favorite stack in the world, but not bad. There's definitely a little power, a little speed mixed in there, a lot of contact. And again, this Royals offense is really good against right-handed pitching.
Yeah, and I mean, really no big glaring weakness with either team, top to bottom. So both teams solid. I think that on the 6-game slate, if you're rolling multiple GPP lineups, these could be two of the more interesting stacks because neither pitcher particularly overwhelming. No, neither one that you're scared of. And if you are looking to play Edison Volquez, by the way, he's $2,700 less than John Lackey on DraftKings, $6,100. So if you are trying to play Volquez tonight, I'm not paying $8,400 for him on FanDuel as my only pitcher. I think DraftKings is the way to go with that one.
Without question, the price point on DraftKings is very nice, and he'll pair very nicely with our top pitcher of the night, which we'll get to here a little bit later.
Absolutely. Speaking of guys we do not like on tonight's slate, Baltimore at Miami. We've got Dan Herron on the mound in this one. If you know me or Josh, you know how we feel about Dan Herron. He is among the league leaders, if you can call it that, in lowest swing strike rate on the season at 5.8%, one of the worst. He's a -112 favorite against Mike Wright of Baltimore, who burst onto the scene with a nice performance in his first start of the season against the Angels. He went 7 1/3 innings, no earned runs, 6 Ks, no walks, 4 hits. But we know the Angels are kind of struggling against anyone that's right-handed and throws a baseball right now. So obviously that could be an outlier. But also Miami, lowest team ISO of any team against righties, also among the worst in the league against righties in general. I mean, you look down here at the bottom, and they're 24th with a 295 team WOBA. Mentioned that ISO is awful, striking out almost 21% of the time. So I think that Wright, and I know that you think so too, he makes for a really interesting tournament option here.
Yeah, and not a bad second pitcher on two-pitcher sites like DraftKings, and even in cash games to offset your top arm. Feels like he has a fairly elevated floor because the Marlins offense just isn't very good against right-handed pitching. Was really efficient in that first start. Only required 90 pitches to get through the work that he did. My biggest concern with him is the fact that teams are going to have a book on him at this point. He does have a start in the big leagues. He's not this pitcher that just came up out of nowhere anymore with very limited available data. I mean, obviously teams have scouting departments, so they knew what to expect from Wright to a certain extent, but now you've got some film, now you have a little bit on him. But he throws hard, and I'm a sucker for velocity. Averaging over 96 miles per hour on his four-seam fastball, according to Brooks Baseball. So he throws hard, he's got a sinker, he's got a changeup, and he's got a curveball, I believe. So he has all the necessary goods to get through a lineup a few times. And that Marlins lineup just isn't imposing. Definitely not a lineup that I will be stacking. On the other side of things, depending on what Buck does with his lineup, Buck is a savvy manager. He's one of the managers that us DFS gamers can really get behind. Yep. Does a good job of taking advantage of platoon situations. He will be aware of the fact that Dan Herron has a reverse platoon split, and I would guess that you will see, I mean, Manny Machado should lead off like he has been. Adam Jones will hit in his customary third spot. Maybe he does a little something different, second, fourth, and fifth, because he's been shuffling guys. But definitely like the Orioles as a possible stack option today. Dan Herron, reverse platoon split. Adam Jones and Manny Machado, reverse platoon split. So both make for really good plays, hitting first and third in the order. So you stick in their 2-hole hitter, 4-hole hitter, and then on DraftKings maybe even go a little bit deeper and go down to the 5th spot, especially if that's where Chris Davis resides, and you got your big power hitter hitting 5th, and you got a chance at some fireworks. Low total, so Vegas doesn't expect it to be a high-scoring affair, and it is a pitcher-friendly ballpark in Marlins ballpark, home run-suppressing environment, but as I've said before, Chris Davis can hit the ball a long way. It doesn't matter what ballpark he's in. You could throw him back in the Polo Grounds, and he'd be hitting the ball out of the yard when he makes contact with it, of course, yeah. Which is a problem for him. But as you said with Dan Herron doesn't avoid contact. So this is the type of matchup that can make Chris Davis look good and can make some other O's hitters look pretty good.
Exactly. So that's going to say we're saying that Baltimore is a stack for you. Herron is a fade and avoid. Not a big fan there. All right, let's move on to the next game. We have the Los Angeles Angels at the Boston Red Sox, and another right here, and another really close line. -105 for both pitchers. Looks like a pick 'em here. 8.5 run total. Steven Wright taking on C.J. Wilson, or whatever's left of C.J. Wilson here. And Vegas thinks there's going to be some runs scored, and I don't blame him here. C.J. Wilson, he's still an okay lefty, but he's not a great lefty. I'd say he's about average now. Certainly a guy that can be hit, and the only problem being that if you look at Boston Red Sox against lefties, 276 team WOBA, third worst in the league. 136 ISO. They do walk 10.3% of the time, which you like, but an 18.2% strikeout rate is about league average there. CJ Wilson about league average in walk rate, below average in strikeout rate. So you're not expecting much of a ceiling for him at all. He shouldn't be getting a lot of strikeouts tonight against Boston. So I think the Boston makes an interesting stack. And the Angels, I mean, against the unknown and Stephen Wright, who's only pitched 15 innings, he's been okay. He hasn't been great. But I think this could be a nice way to stack both sides, and I'm not playing either one of these pitchers tonight.
Yeah, I'm not playing knuckleballer Stephen Wright or C.J. Wilson at this point. I do think I like the Boston stack quite a bit, especially depending on what John Farrell does with that lineup. We saw Xander Bogaerts bumped up to 5th yesterday. I like Mike Napoli against the lefty quite a bit. Love the top two. Love Mookie Betts and Dustin Pedroia. If nothing else, I'm going to be hooking the two of them on a lot of games. Right-handed batters against C.J. Wilson, definitely favorable. Maybe today's a designated off day for David Ortiz, which would be actually something I would like to see, because then you'd see some of these other lefty mashers like Napoli, maybe Bogaerts hitting in more favorable spots again, making for an even deeper stack, maybe 4 deep, 5 deep, 6 deep. But even if Ortiz is in the lineup, he hasn't been god-awful against lefties in recent years. He has managed to retain some of his skills, so you can use him, but most likely if I'm building a Boston stack, I'm going to actually skip Ortiz's spot in the order, and I'm going to grab teammate Mike Napoli instead. Really good against left-handed pitching, really cheap, going to offer you some salary relief today. Not that you should need a lot of it, but it does give you some money to spend big on some of your one-off items to supplement the stack. But I'm also fine with stacking against Stephen Wright. Eric Ibar, nice cheap option at shortstop, just $2,300 on FanDuel, and not terribly expensive on DraftKings either, checking in at just $3,800. He's moved up to the leadoff spot and thriving. You got Mike Trout hitting second, who's always in play against anyone. Cole Calhoun's been hitting cleanup behind Albert Pujols, so that's a nice little 1 through 4 if you're looking for the maximum stack you can get on FanDuel or a partial stack on DraftKings. So I like both sides of this for stacks, and I am avoiding each starting pitcher.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think there's going to be some definite upside with these two teams here. Speaking of stacks, but also speaking of bad weather, San Francisco Giants at the Colorado Rockies. Looks like bad weather all day once again. Seems like Colorado is just destined for terrible weather every day of our lives now. So issues, obviously, with the earlier game starting at 4:10. Possibly delays, possibly pushed back. We don't really know. So keep your eyes on that. Definitely make sure, because if only one of these games gets in today, you could be looking at some zeros for tonight. So make sure you check out your rules. Make sure you see this game's being played. But either way, obviously you're not playing either pitcher, and obviously you are playing hitters. And like we were mentioning on an earlier podcast, is there could be some definite value plays pop up from this one, especially both games get in today. There's already been some games postponed here. 10.5 run total in this one with Yusmeiro Petit against David Hale. So minus 130 favorite for San Francisco really just says both teams are going to score, but San Francisco is probably going to score a little bit more. Yeah,
I mean, if they get this game in, you can stack either side of this. The unfortunate thing is you're not going to have that second lineup. The lineup for the second game of the doubleheader is going to have to be a little bit of guesswork, educated guesswork. See where Posey's playing. Posey should be in both games. I would imagine he'll play first base in one of them. But guys like Matt Duffy could present value if it's leaked or suspected that he'll be in the lineup for the second game of the doubleheader, maybe giving Casey McGehee a break at third base. Brandon Belt, if he's in the lineup, looks pretty good, obviously, but if they decide that they're going to play Posey, catch him in the early game and play him at first in the second game, well, you don't want to be sitting on Brandon Belt on FanDuel where you can't make lineup swap late and eat that zero from Belt. DraftKings, obviously, you've got some more flexibility because you can make those late swaps, so not as big of a deal if you get some of these guys in and you have to swap them out for their reserves. Basically, you're looking to get the Coors Field exposure more than you're looking at the player in most of these instances anyway. So those swaps aren't a big deal. But, yeah, this is a dicey one. I'm probably Unless the weather looks more favorable, I'm probably going to avoid it altogether on sites that aren't DraftKings. On DraftKings, you can get it in because you can make these late swaps, but on FanDuel, I'm not gonna be messing around with this. But if the weather does clear up, this is a great stackable game. I mean, that's pretty much DFS 101. Game at Coors, bad pitchers on the hill. You get your stacks in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm of the same thinking. Like you said, probably won't have a lineup, but what you should have is a good idea of who will be playing that second game. But as it looks right now, doesn't look particularly great for both games getting in. So maybe if you want this exposure, go ahead and just get yourself in the early games. You'll know the lineup. You'll at least know that they'll find a way to get that game in more than likely at some point today, since it is a 4 o'clock start time. So that's going to be my advice there. It's going to be tough, but if you find a way and this game plays and you don't have a lineup, but you nail the hitters and this one goes off like it did last night, then more power to you. You're going to have a big-time edge in GPPs tonight.
That is without question the truth.
All right, next up, San Diego Padres at the Los Angeles Dodgers. And this one's going to be an interesting matchup. We've got Mike Bolsinger, who was a minus 170 favorite this morning, now just 150 at home. 7.5 run total over Ian Kennedy. And neither one of these offenses is really hitting the ball particularly well right now. We know the Dodgers, I don't remember what it was, 32 innings, something like that, without
I believe
scoring.
it was 30. I believe it was 35, and I know it is a new franchise record, which is not good.
Yeah, which is also
Not good for them. I mean, good for me as a Giants fan. I've enjoyed every second of it. But
I'm not much of a Dodgers fan myself either, so I have no sympathy for this team who they've scored plenty of runs this year, so it's only fair that they save some for everyone else. But this is a game where you could target either pitcher because Ian Kennedy, when he's good, he does have high strikeout upside, but he hasn't been particularly good this season. Obviously, a lot of big bats, best lineup in the league against righties. But, this is a guy who, you look at his logs, FanDuel-wise, 5, 4, 15, 14, -1. And that so happened to be the -1 against the Los Angeles Dodgers in Petco. So, obviously, big-time upside here with the Dodgers, but if you're not a believer that they're going to get off the snide tonight and they continue to struggle, then Ian Kennedy's going to make for a really nice tournament play in that big ballpark against a struggling offense.
yeah, and I think he's going to be a somewhat popular play for people who really buy into these hot streaks and cold streaks. They're going to look at this Dodgers scoreless streak and say, "Hey, when Ian Kennedy's on, he's on." I'm not thinking of that line of thinking. I'm actually on the opposite side of things. I'm thinking the Dodgers make for possibly a low-owned stack because they've been bad lately. But just think about what Justin just said. They are the best offense in baseball against right-handed pitching this year.
It's not even that close.
With a 35-inning scoreless streak. So they basically just spotted the league, 35 scoreless innings, and still lead the league in offense against right-handed pitching. I mean, that's like... that'd be like Justin playing his son in basketball and spotting him 10 in a game to 11 and then just reeling off 11 straight points, I believe. So that's where this is at right now with the Dodgers. And I kind of like a stack of them tonight. Jock Peterson's price is down now. Jimmy Rollins is a nice cheap option at shortstop. You got Howie Kendrick at second. Adrian Gonzalez against any right-handed pitcher is always a nice play. And the depth could obviously go on at DraftKings, but on FanDuel, that 1 through 4 stack looks really nice to me. Keep an eye on what Grandal does tonight. He did leave last night's game early. They suspect that there might have been a concussion. If it was not a concussion, if he's fine, makes for a good play tonight. But if he's out, then obviously, unfortunately, you don't have him to use. A.J. Ellis, not nearly the offensive player that Grandal is. But I do like the Dodgers quite a bit tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And on the Padres side, I mean, they're an interesting stack, but like you mentioned, Bolsinger, a fine SP2. It's interesting in the sense that there's talent on that team, but they do hit lefties much better than they hit righties. Obviously, pitchers park. So, I mean, if you want low owned, they're certainly going to be low owned. I just don't know how much faith I have in them putting up a big number tonight.
Yeah, I don't have much faith in them putting up a big number. Maybe you grab some one-offs. You pointed out Matt Kemp's ridiculously low price point on FanDuel, just $2,500. I mean, it's really hard to get much more upside at that price than he offers. So, but I'm certainly not stacking these guys. I actually like the Bolsinger side of things better. Not an electric pitcher by any stretch, but does a good job of throwing strikes. Vegas likes him to win the game, so makes for a I'd say somewhat high floor, fairly low ceiling, but priced accordingly pitcher. And sometimes you don't get a lot of value on a guy, but sometimes the value's just right, and I feel like they nailed it with Bolsinger. So
Yeah.
I like him tonight, and I like the Dodgers stack quite a bit.
Yeah, seems like a low risk, medium reward type of guy with Bolsinger
Yep.
tonight. And like we mentioned, there's only one pitcher we feel great about, and he's in the final game of tonight, the Chicago Cubs at the Arizona Diamondbacks, and his name is Mr. Jake Arrieta, just a minus 125 favorite. It is in Chase Field. Ruby De La Rosa has been very good against righties, has not been good at all against lefties. 8-run total here. Obviously, if you're looking at De La Rosa, he's an interesting tournament play. Arrieta is your obvious cash game play. He's got to be your top option. Most talented pitcher on the slate, not particularly close. No one's really a big favorite outside of Bolsinger, but Arrieta does still have those big bats behind him. You got your Dexter Fowler, your Anthony Rizzo that De La Rosa is going to have to navigate, and then you've got plenty of other big bats that hit righties pretty well as well. You got Miguel Montero. I think the Cubs, despite the fact that I do like De La Rosa in some GPPs, I think the Cubs are going to be an interesting stack in this nice ballpark tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I like De La Rosa as a GPP play, but in terms of stacking, the stack in this game would be the Cubs against the Diamondbacks. Not going to touch any Diamondbacks hitters tonight, but with Fowler switch hitting and leading off, you get a lefty against De La Rosa right out of the gate. Bryant, big power from the 2-hole. Going to be the righty-righty matchup, which isn't desirable against De La Rosa, but I mean, he has the kind of power that it doesn't matter what handed pitcher he's facing, he makes for an interesting play. Then you got Rizzo hitting third and another lefty, which is going to be a problem for De La Rosa. And because Joe Madden is pretty savvy when it comes to putting lineups together and exploiting platoons, I mean, we saw him do it for years with the Rays. I'm guessing Miguel Montero hits cleanup tonight, which makes for 3 left-handed batters in the first 4 against De La Rosa, and it definitely makes them a very enticing stack against Ruby.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there. And if you want the ultimate contrarian stack tonight, it's going to be the Arizona Diamondbacks because Jake Arrieta is going to be very low owned. So if you're really just looking for the one stack that could really put you over the top, if Arrieta does struggle tonight and Arizona gets to him, maybe even if he doesn't give up a lot of runs, or maybe he throws too many pitches, which he has done a few times this season, hasn't pitched deep into games a few times. Maybe they do that. They get to the bullpen. I mean, they did it last night, so it's definitely a possibility, and that's your low-owned GPP winning type of team if you're not on Arrieta tonight.
Yeah, and obviously you've got the ballpark working in your favor, and there are talented hitters on the Diamondbacks. Make no bones about it. I certainly like the Paul Goldschmidts and A.J. Pollocks of the world, but tough matchup. But as you said, contrarian opportunity, great ballpark, and the total is decent. I mean, it's 8, and Arrieta is only a minus 125 favorite, so they do expect some runs to be scored against the Cubs tonight. And maybe it's not even Arrieta that gives them up. Maybe it turns into last night's affair where they get 2 against Arrieta through 7, and then the bullpen melts down. I mean, we saw Hector Rondon serve up that dinger to Goldschmidt last night. Bullpen's been troubling for them this year, so definitely some run scored potential. Maybe it's that late explosion like we saw at Coors yesterday. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting way to go tonight. Tonight's slate, a lot of uncertainty, and it's going to be a really fun GPP type of night because there are a few plays that people will be on all over the place. So finding your swerve, your alternative to those guys, is going to be what's going to set you apart in GPPs tonight. But then again, on a 6-game slate, you act too differently, and maybe you just set yourself behind everyone too quickly. So obviously stacks like that going to be reserved for your one-of tournaments if you're playing multiple lineups. Yep. If I'm playing one lineup, there's no way in hell that it will be the Arizona Diamondbacks stack tonight.
Yep.
All right, with that being said, thank you for hanging out with us. As always, we have a ton of great content at dailyfantasycafe.com. Follow us on Twitter at DFCafe, and we'll see you guys next time.